Items 88, 89, and 90 is the proposed subdivision immediately to the north, on the north side of Oquendo, the south side of the Quail Alignment, and west side of Cimarron. We are proposing a total of 24 homes on about 3.2 acres. One of the issues that arose with respect to this is the location of our proposed entrance here. We have a waiver to provide offset from the proposed location of this entrance to the intersection of Oquendo and Cimarron. We had contemplated moving the entrance off of Cimarron, but we think this entrance where we're having it is better. If we were to remove it and place it off Cimarron, what it would create is basically one cul-de-sac and a substreet. We don't think that would look as good, and we think actually the location of it is fine for three primary reasons. One, Cimarron Road will dead end or turn into an elbow and turn into Quail heading east. It does not go farther north. The reason it will not go farther north is because immediately north of Phase 1 site is a regional detention basin. You can see Phase 2 and Phase 3 is bisected by a drainage channel that will empty into this detention basin here. Number two, I think what was very important why we combined these items at town board so that town board could see is that the development to the south here will not have any access, vehicular access to Oquendo Road. So that eliminates any type of conflicting traffic heading from this development onto Oquendo. And number three, Oquendo itself is going to be a lightly trafficked road. So for those three reasons, we do believe this design is best. And I think when you see all three, especially Phase 1 and Phase 2 and how they interact, it does make sense. We appreciate Spring Valley Town Board's recommendation of approval on this. We agree with all the staff recommendations, or all the if approved conditions on that. With that, more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there people here to speak on 53, 54, 55, 88, 89, and 90? Is there anyone here? If you would raise your hand. Just to be clear, we're hearing all of these items together. This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak is invited to come forward. There being no one, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval. I agree because Cimarron does elbow to the north. The waiver makes sense. Move for approval of items 53, 54, 55, 88, 89, and 90.
There's a motion on the floor. If there's no discussion, please cast your votes. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Next is item 61, ORD 23900203, receive a report on the Transform Clark County Development Code rewrite and direct staff accordingly.
Good morning.
Good morning. Testing? Good?
Yeah.
If the booth can put on the overhead, not the overhead, but the presentation, thank you.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you again. Matt Goebel and Jenny Baker from Clarion Associates. We've been working with you all on the Transform Clark County project. Pleased to be here this morning at an important milestone as we're starting to get near the very end of this important project. This presentation is really to present the adoption version of the draft and give you an opportunity to find out what we've been up to and ask questions at this important stage. The presentation is brief. We did want to just put it in context, though. We're going to talk primarily about the development code and the new Title 30, but we wanted to talk, first of all, just about the overall project, Transform Clark County. It's been a multi-year effort. We started this back at the beginning of 2020 with you all, and now we're moving very close to the end stages. We've got two very important products that came out of this effort, the Transform Clark County Master Plan, started back in 2020 and which you all adopted in November of 2021. And now the Development Code, the new Title 30, which is a major comprehensive rewrite of your land use regulations, anticipated to be considered by you for adoption in August with an effective date of January 1st, 2024. And we'll talk more about that later in this presentation. Throughout this overall Transform Clark County project, we've had a lot of public engagement. We've heard from a lot of different folks. We've had various surveys along the way. We've had over 4,700 responses. You can see there, 125 online and in-person meetings. 700 plus folks have attended the meetings. 3,800 plus project information emails distributed. So a lot of times that we've reached out to the community to get feedback. This is for both the master plan and Title 30. This slide is just about Title 30, and this is just about some of the engagement that we've done on this piece. When we kicked this off to find out what people thought and what they wanted to see in a new code, we got 500 plus responses. Every time we've rolled out new material, working with staff, we've had a whole series of meetings with the town boards and with you all and with the planning commission and with the general public. So every time we've rolled something out, we've had 10 plus meetings on each installment. The staff has been constantly available at the counter, just answering a lot of detailed questions. What might this mean for my property? What might this mean for, X neighborhood? A lot of different visits to the website. You can see just in the past 30 days there, over 450 responses. We've done a lot of general email notifications every time something has gone out. So our email list right now is over 1,200 people getting notice about all these milestones. And then finally, we've rolled out that online commenting tool, and people have used this really well. So we've actually put drafts of the new code online, and people have been able to go in and put specific comments about what they like, what they'd like to see changed. And just on the last consolidated draft, we got over 200 comments using that tool. So a lot of folks have been engaged. We've really tried to cast a broad net in getting people's feedback. Just a little bit more about the calendar for Title 30. Remember that we started this back in 2021 with that code assessment document, which summarized where we wanted to go, the big ideas. We moved forward with drafting the code. All the different lines on this slide are just the different installments that we released. Again, we're moving forward with the presentation of this code now in June of 2023. There will be additional stakeholder meetings in July. And the goal is to consider this at adoption hearings in August, again with an effective date of January 1st. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation. With that, we just wanted to talk a little bit about the substance of the code. And y'all have seen us before. We've talked about this at many meetings, so we're not going to hit you with everything. But Jenny and I just wanted to hit you with some of the substantive highlights of what we really thought was new and distinctive about the code. We laid out the roadmap back in the code assessment. And we were really looking at trying to improve Title 30 in a variety of ways. Y'all's current Title 30 was last comprehensively updated in 2000. It's gotten to be a big document. It's over 670 pages, I think. It's a challenging document to use. It's been amended many times. There's a lot of repetition in there. Everyone we talked to said, what can you do to make this a simpler document to use and understand? It also just didn't really reflect a lot of the new planning ideas that were introduced in the master plan process. The whole focus on sustainability, the whole focus on protecting neighborhoods. You don't have those tools in the current Title 30. And so the new Title 30, I think, first of all, just from a user-friendly point of view, addresses a lot of those concerns. We've tried to work with you all to make it cleaner, more logically organized, better illustrated, shorter. We're down to 370 pages as opposed to 670 pages. It's got much less repetition. There's more illustrations. There's more graphics. It's written in a way that should be more accessible to more people. It should be more flexible to adapt to future changes, to unanticipated circumstances. And so the intent is that this will be a living document, but it's a better, stronger, more flexible foundation to add to in the future. The user-friendly piece, I mentioned that, but just on the left-hand side of the slide is a good example of how your current code is organized. You've got a lot of these really hyper-detailed tables, which have a lot of repetition from table to table. A lot of this stuff is repeated throughout the code, and that format that you've landed in has led to a really challenging code to use. And we've tried to replace it with things like you see on the right, with a simpler, more clean presentation of a sample zoning district there, more tables, more illustrations, things like that. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback just on the organization and format of the code and how it's easier to use. But let's talk a little bit about the substance. And we just wanted to run through some of the big ideas in terms of the substantive improvements in Title 30.
Great. My name's Jenny Baker. Good morning, commissioners. I will talk to you about some things that we've talked about before, but we are emphasizing them today because they are, we think, some of the most important changes to the code that will make it easier. But starting before that, one of the reasons for undertaking this project after the master plan was adopted, so that the two things occurred together, was to make sure that the code could support accomplishing the goals and the vision of the master plan. So what you're looking at here is a future land use map for Winchester and Paradise. And each area of the county has one of these where it says, here's where this kind of land use is appropriate. Here's where another kind is appropriate. I know it's a little tough to read here, but the different colors indicate different uses. And the way those came out in the plan didn't align at all anymore, or it didn't align well with what is in the current code. And so one of the big efforts here was to make sure that the new zoning districts and land uses supported accomplishing what the master plan shows in terms of future land use. And there are other things in the code that will help to accomplish that as well. The development standards will help to make sure that certain goals related to sustainability and connectivity also are supported through the code to accomplish the plan goals. So that's one really important thing that is not, detail by detail, but it is a good way that the two go together and one can help to accomplish the other. Residential neighborhood protection is something that we heard a lot about throughout this process, through the plan and through the code. One particularly important thing was the R&P areas. Right now, the only protection for those areas really is that there are large lot sizes. So if something shows up next door that's incompatible, really what they're relying on is just that the lot is large, so it's not right there. But what this code has are residential neighborhood protections. There is, as you're probably aware, a residential adjacency section. So that talks about if something shows up next door to a residential district or lot, there are certain standards it has to meet, and that can be separation, it can be limitations on height, it can be requirements for buffering, so that can be a fence or some landscaping, but basically it says more specifically, and this isn't just R&Ps, it's anywhere, that if something that is non-residential shows up next to that residential, it builds in some protections for those residential lots. We've talked to you before about parking. We've mentioned that a few years ago the county did some studies to see if parking was being overprovided in certain instances, and in fact it was. So starting from there, we took a look at the base requirements now, and we made some reductions. They're not drastic. It doesn't reduce it, 75%, but in most instances, the base minimum parking requirement has been reduced maybe 15 to 25%. Additionally, there's a maximum parking for non-residential uses. So if a project believes that they need more than 125% of that minimum, it will come for approval. So that's not automatic anymore, that you can just put as much parking as you like. There are additionally numerous options for flexibility. So if somebody thinks that their development is not going to require as much parking as the minimum, there are options that they can choose to ask for less. Shared parking between two sites with different hours. Proximity to transit, and there are a number of other things defined in there. They can ask to reduce the minimum parking requirement if they can demonstrate that it would still be adequate. An important thing is the addition of EV parking standards. As the use of EV cars expands, the need to support them is increasing, and so you have in this code specific standards for the number and how many EV spaces need to be installed for the different uses. Building design is something that is much more clear and objective in this code, that we believe, than in the current one. The current one has tables where things are often described as you have to do something that's compatible or that's similar. And that means a lot of different things to different people. So what this code does instead is clearly says when these standards are going to apply and gives a menu of options for how to comply. So the person who's doing the development isn't told you have to do these 3 things. There's a menu of 6 or 8 and you have to choose 3 that would fit in with the project. So it both increases the specific design standards that someone has to meet, but offers flexibility in doing so. Open space is new. It is very common in most communities for certain developments to have that open space built in, and so this this adoption version of Title 30 specifies when it needs to be provided and how much. It's typically for multifamily and other larger developments, not single-family developments and mixed use. There are certain ways it can be provided that are specified: plazas, gardens, amenity zones, and mixed-use development. And so those things are more clearly specified than they had been in the past. Sustainability is another new emphasis in this adoption version. As we've talked to you about before, there is a points system, and a development has to meet a certain minimum number of points. Again, there's some flexibility how you do it. You can do certain landscaping, renewable energy, cool roofs, but there are a number of things that have to be chosen to meet the minimum points. If someone chooses to go above that, there are some bonuses that they can receive, density bonuses and other things.
A question.
yes, sir.
Commissioner Kirkpatrick has a question for you.
Yep, thank you. Can you actually go back to the slide before, because I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So did you say that open space wasn't specific to residential, but more focused on the multifamily? Is that what I heard you said?
So the common open space requirements apply to multifamily, they apply to manufactured home developments, RV parks, and mixed use, and there may be one other thing, but a single-family subdivision, it doesn't apply that they have to do that in that instance. So it's mainly like multiple residential development instances.
So is that, and I'm asking because y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy, but what if there's some neighborhoods where you want the trails to be contiguous, or you want some of that? I mean, we don't have a lot of space left for parks anymore, so I don't remember kind of wanting to go down that direction, but I'm one person, but I don't, in my district, you're going to do some open space, but I don't want to, I just never heard that conversation.
So one other component that Jenny didn't mention also was a PUD. So if you're coming in for a plan unit development and you're doing a unique design, whether it be townhomes and that sort of thing, we also require some semblance of open space. In addition, we do have a trail plan. So if someone comes in with a development that's adjacent to that, they're going to be required to provide that trail or provide that connectivity. So it's not an all or nothing type situation, but generally we want to make sure that we have specific boundaries for our open space, because a lot of times you will note that open space is being called out and it's a strip of landscaping that can't be used for anything. So we're trying to be more specific as to what open space should be.
But to be clear, we can condition an application with some open space if there are good reasons to do it. It's not as though we can't do that.
No, not at all. And as you do today, there's a lot of developments that are coming in the Southwest that open space, such as trails, or if they're taking advantage of density that includes a power line easement, the requirement is going to be that they're going to put a trail section or some sort of open space, as opposed to just leaving the power line easement open. So that has always been an option, and we will continue to work with applicants and work with the board to make sure that those options are included in the development. We just want to be more specific when there is required open space. We don't want the open space to be not usable, not an amenity, something that is not helpful for the neighborhood that is being created.
Well, for me, I just hope that, because, on that first, and it was messy on how to read it and figure it out, but sometimes there was information that was pertinent so that they knew. It wasn't just us. You might have health district roles. You might have all these other districts. I just hope that there's a may in there that may require additional open space. I mean, I get it for multifamily manufactured homes and all that, but I mean, you don't, to do a nice planned subdivision, you want some type of open space.
I understand, and we'll go back and look and make sure that that is included.
Okay.
Thank you, Jenny. Go ahead.
Okay, last thing, signs. The signs section is significantly different in the adoption version than it is in the current version. There are a lot of improvements there. One thing is that each sign type is defined, and as you can see on the bottom of this slide, there is a table. So whatever the sign type is, all of the standards are in that one place. So at one glance, if you want to put up your monument sign, you can see what zoning district is it permitted in. You can see what's the area, how many you can have, and any other things that apply, illumination, other requirements, whatever that may be. There's some flexibility built into this section. There are larger allowances to start with so that you may see fewer waivers, and there are other ways to ask for flexibility. As I mentioned, each sign type is defined. Those definitions include a lot of illustrations and photos to make it more clear what a sign type means. There's a section on standard signs versus specialty signs. And the last thing is that the procedures for how to get a sign approved are more detailed in this version. In the current code, it doesn't really say much about how you are going to get your sign permit approved, but this version does say that.
Mr. Chairman,
That's really the last topic that we wanted to highlight for
Master.
you specifically.
just while you're still on the
Commissioner
sign.
Naft, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. While you're on the sign slide, so do you delineate between animated and static?
We do. Each sign type has a little table like you see on the bottom of the slide there, and those are given distinctive tables.
So is there consideration on the fully animated signs for traffic patterns nearby?
I think that's this sign type here on the slide, yes, and I think there is. We don't have the full standards here.
Okay, so in other words, fully animated signs along heavily trafficked area would be a consideration.
Very much so. You could only do those fully animated signs in very limited circumstances to begin with. I think the CR district is one.
VR being the resort district.
Commercial resort.
They didn't modify the restrictions that we have today.
Thank you.
I think that's what you were asking.
And Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, sorry. I'm trying to remember back from our last meeting, I thought you would probably update us on the sidewalk thing, because we didn't really have that ironed out, the sidewalks, the detached sidewalks.
I have lots of questions if we're on general
Okay.
stuff. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm just trying to make sure we don't lose touch with some of the things. I want to be sure before we go out to put it out to the public.
So, not really knowing where you're going next, is this the right time to, or do you have some explanation?
No, this would be
about
fine. We actually just have like 3 more slides just to talk about the mechanics of the adoption process and next steps.
Why don't
and
we
then
do
we're done.
that? Let's finish your presentation, and we've got a
Okay.
couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Is that all right, Commissioner Naft? You can-
One thing we wanted to emphasize with this presentation is that while there's been a lot of work done here, there's new material, the material you have has been updated. This is by no means, going to be final moving forward. You're still going to want to look at new projects and new ways to adjust the code to changing circumstances. We recognize very much that it's a living document. It is in every community. Hopefully, it's a more flexible foundation that's easier to modify in the future. This slide is just identifying some of the things that we know will be looked at as potential changes in the future. Some things you've already got underway, such as the planning and the new regulations for the stadium district, the tiny home regulations based on compliance with state law. Some things like that are already underway, and they'll be calling for code amendments probably in the next couple of years. Thinking about the administration of that tree fund, that's a new tool that you have, that's going to require potentially some additional work internally. Always moving forward. As we get to the end of the legislative session, there could be things that your attorney's office and your staff think may require changes to the code as well. So that's all underway. You're also just going to have additional new policy priorities, and that's just what the examples are at the bottom of this slide. We've already heard that there is interest in maybe additional regulations for dark skies in non-urban areas, ag regulations for animals. We introduced that new neighborhood protection overlay district, and it's specifically for the RNPs in this document, but we've already heard that there is additional interest in using that NPO in other places as well. And so that might be additional work that is coming up in the future. So just to illustrate that this is a foundation, and additional work is always being considered. So, final slide. Post-adoption, again, the anticipation right now is that there will be an adoption hearing in August, effective date of January 1st, 2024. The strategy that you all have worked out is that applications can be submitted under the new code once it's adopted, even prior to that effective date. But no decision would be taken on such applications until the new code is effective. So somebody could come in and say, I want to apply under the new code, and you could hear that, but the decision wouldn't be effective until the first part of 2024. Applications will still be processed under the existing code until the end of the year, until that effective date, unless the applicant elects to be reviewed under the new code. So a bit of a hybrid situation, and this is not unusual. We've seen this before. You know, a lot of times people like the new code. It provides more flexibility or more opportunity, and they want to take advantage of that. So you're letting them do that. You're letting them have the choice of the existing code versus the new code. Finally, the staff is definitely committed to, workshops, educational workshops for the town board members, for the general public, for the industry, anyone that wants to learn more about the new code. What are the big changes from the current Title 30? I think that's going to be an open-ended process where the staff is really just working to educate the public about all the opportunities under the new code. So I think that's our last slide. Just wanted to emphasize that adoption is not the final step. And with that, questions?
All right, so Commissioner Knapp, you've got a few.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Commissioner Kirkpatrick kind of teed up where I was heading. If we could just have an extended conversation really around on-site circulation and what has changed with requirements for pedestrian realms on site, on private property. I think that's page 164 that covers it, but specifically my issue under current code is we allow for things like paint and striping, striped crosswalks. So you typically have a situation where the public sidewalk just ends when you enter a shopping center or commercial center. How does the current code or the update to Title 30 address that?
I'm going to need to grab my hard copy just so I don't misspeak, but I think generally speaking, the intent is that the on-site circulation system is intended to connect all the major pedestrian access points on that site. So major doorways to major buildings.
Your definition of that, though, is not paint on the asphalt. It's curbing or protected sidewalk or something substantial.
There's a list of techniques that can be used, and I would want to look at my hard copy just to make sure that...
Commissioner Knapp, to answer your question, one of the methods in identifying these walkways or pathways and crosswalks is changing of paving material, pattern, and color, but not painting the material. So we wouldn't allow painting of material, but we would want, again, a change in material type, material patterns, but not just simply painting these pathways.
Okay. And then, I guess in that same section, I'm looking at item 2, section I, sidewalks. Minimum 5-foot wide sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of all public streets in accordance with Title 30. Why didn't we specify detached?
So what we have done differently from what we have today, so currently right now, attached and detached sidewalk requirements are outside of the Public Works Development Standards. And so what we've done, because sidewalks are a component of the right-of-way in some cases, and in other cases, they're a component of the street type. So we had moved those sidewalks to that section of when attached and detached are required, and that's 0408C5. That's when attached and detached sidewalks are identified to be required. So instead of having different sections speak to when and where they're required, we condensed it to one section, and that's where the requirement for attached and detached sidewalks resides now.
And in addition to that, we also have certain areas where you might want an enhanced sidewalk, more than just that 5-foot. Mm-hmm. And the code identified the mixed-use districts as the place where that was the best opportunity, where that was really the most important. And so you can see on page 174, there's some enhanced sidewalk requirements for those areas. And that can be a platform moving forward. You might want to expand those enhanced sidewalk requirements to other places in the future. But for right now, the baseline is that 5-foot that you have as Ms. Rial mentioned.
And I'll jump in on that because I know that Commissioner Kirkpatrick is looking for wider than 5 feet. So we made sure that that is the minimum standard, and we made it clear that that is the minimum standard. If they come in for an application for X, something on North Hollywood, shall we say, and there needs to be a larger sidewalk, that is going to be at the discretion of the board. And because we made it a minimum standard and we are clear throughout the code that these are minimum standards, realize that the Board of County Commissioners can require greater than this. That's where we think you're covered with the wider sidewalks, because making it a minimum, there's some places that 5-foot detached are perfect, but there are some places where you need a lot wider, and I understand that as well.
Anything? Okay, you're good. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know one of the things that has come up is townhomes, and in other jurisdictions, they do have separate sections for townhomes. And it's certainly, as we're looking to fill that missing middle piece of things, and as our developers are trying to figure out how to get people into homes for less than $400,000, I don't know that we need to have a long discussion today, but definitely I know that's something that I want to understand a little better as to why we wouldn't be a little more flexible to make sure that folks can get into that type of product.
And if I can interject in that is the reason that we've totally, I guess you could say, annihilated our old PUD section. When folks came in for townhomes, they would come in for waivers of everything. And what we're saying is, show us a project. And this townhouse development, you get this approved, these are your standards. And then the next one is, these are going to be your standards. So it's more flexible, but they have to also show us a little more design, maybe a little more open space, that sort of thing.
But I guess I don't understand, like, why is it that townhouses are different than a single-family residential district in terms of requiring a PUD?
Commissioner Jones, I would say that they're not in the sense that our zoning districts allow for attached and detached houses. Some districts say that detached is appropriate, some say that attached may be appropriate, and that's when we would require a special use permit. And then others say that attached single-family development is appropriate and doesn't require any type of special use permit. We have a wide variety of attached products, attached single-family products that can be cluster homes. They could be townhome product that actually has larger driveways where there's alleys in the back and serve more as a quasi single-family development. And then we have a lot of the townhome products that we see that are really compact, very little driveways, very little pathways, more of a multi-family type of feel. And so because of the wide variety that we have with townhomes, instead of having a townhome zoning district, a specific zoning district for townhomes, or townhome rules and regulations that apply to maybe some of the townhomes, but then the other townhome products would have to waive it just by virtue of the design. The idea was to create standards that could apply to any attached single-family development, but if those standards didn't meet their intended design or their goal on what they wanted to achieve within their community, then they could do a planned unit development. And that planned unit development is what they would use to establish their driveway lengths, to their setbacks, their lot sizes. And then we would look at it on the merits of that to say, is that an appropriate development for this size area? So understanding what we were hearing from the home builders, that our current PUD standards didn't allow for townhome products, and our current development standards didn't allow for townhome products. Really what we look at is we look at it as it's an attached housing product. It's a single-family attached housing product. And again, recognizing that we have a variety of different types of products and proposals. We heard we want more flexibility, we want this, so that's why we created a planning and development section that doesn't have design guidelines in it. Again, the PUD is intended
it's a new concept, it's a new way of looking at things. If you go to a lot of the jurisdictions, again, back to the East Coast, because I'm from the East Coast, you will see Southern California, 200 of this EUD, and these are their design standards, and this is how they were approved. They didn't go through a whole bunch of waivers, but they created their own design, and they need to adhere to their own design, but it's a lot more flexible now, because as you see, when we have now, the waivers of everything.
And then finally, we talked a little bit about the effective date. So let's say we get an application that comes in as in the queue. The application is filed, and I assume the standards that were in place at the time would apply.
That's correct, unless the applicant wants to opt into the new code, because there might be some advantage to it.
Just for clarity. Are there other questions? Commissioner Kirkpatrick?
Yeah, I just had a couple, and I really like that thought of the PUD, PUD section started in our space, because it was unique, had a maybe would be more probable of that, but as there's, and especially for other neighborhoods trying to fit in, these FOS others have, where there's empty lots next to an existing townhome product, and how do you make that work with, and I had you start with more waivers and the answers, so I'm good for that. But, and I know that the list of the concerns that the home builders had to get this time, and I've been through the list, and I don't see either over the closest question that orange keep big. I don't understand why that's an issue. Go then when we have this open presentation, will people again be able to get more comments? Will they with us? That one, okay, some of my very outline areas that further outline areas to have some uses, and so when did the public comment if we have to adopt it in August? Does that stop in July?
I think that as noted, it is going to be actually July 17th. The room is reserved. We were just waiting to get through this, and then we will send out the flyer and let everyone know they don't need to come to both. They can come to one or the other, but item 63A are going towards
zoning